I'm joined by Anjou, a commission painter, worked with Dreamhack behind the scenes for about 5 years, worked with Games Workshop for 5 years, and has a lore YouTube channel in the works, so keep your eye out for that one. How are you doing today, Anjou?
I'm doing great, thank you. I just came from a full day of painting Warhammer, so I'm in the zone right now. I'm
Absolutely.
immersed.
And it's 11 p.m. right now for you. It's only 10 p.m. for
Yes.
me. But you are going to record this video, and then you are going to the hottest club, and you have a hot date. So I
Yeah,
shan't keep you too long.
absolutely. Sure.
International man of mystery,
That's how we
described
do it.
himself as Batman before we went live. You didn't think I'd drop you in that, but I absolutely am going to.
Fair. Completely fair. I walked myself into that one, if I'm going to be honest.
So the premise of this series is I take someone who hasn't played Old World. You haven't played Old World. You did say that you played Fantasy about 15 years ago, so that's a good,
Yeah.
healthy amount of time for that brain matter to just be used for something else.
Yeah.
But you have played Age of Sigmar, obviously worked for
Yeah.
Games Workshop.
Yeah.
You understand how these sorts of things work. So
Yeah.
we're going to get you to rate some items.
Yeah.
Going to make it nice and easy. Whether you think an item is something that you'd see as like a staple item, you see it in most lists, or you don't. It's
Yeah.
good and bad is a bit subjective when it comes to the items. So it's do you think you'd see this in most lists, or do you think you wouldn't?
Yeah.
I'm going to deliberately frame it in the way to make it hard for you to get it right,
Good.
because that's way funnier.
Yeah.
And just to start you off, we've got an example here. So this is the Ruby Ring of Ruin, 30 points. It's a generic enchanted item, so any of the armies apart from dwarves can take it. And you can cast the Fireball spell at level 2. So the way casting works in Old World is you roll 2 dice, you add your power level, whether that's a caster level or a bound spell.
Sure.
So to cast this, you cast it 2d6 plus 2. And the spell here, it casts on an 8, 24-inch range, 2d6, strength 4 hits at AP 0 with flaming attacks. Now, coming from 40k and looking at all Age of Sigmar rules, I understand that doesn't sound particularly exciting. This is one of the most used items in the game. This is good
really?
output. Yeah, this is.
Wow. In my head, I was like,
This seems
isn't the
terrible.
staple item. Yeah, I played a lot of Total War Warhammer, and I've never used this item whenever I get it in there. And so, okay.
Yeah. So just to set your expectations, damage output can be a little bit lower. But, a lot of the issue with getting damage through an Old World is actually hitting. And this is auto hits, so that's where a lot of the strength comes in. And strength 4 is quite good. A lot of stuff's T3 is like a baseline in this game.
Yeah.
So we're going to start off with the feedback scroll. This is a generic item. Again, any army apart from dwarves can take it. Arcane item, so it only goes on casters. Costs 60 points. The way that magic items work is your sort of like top level characters can take 100 points in total, and your hero level characters, your sort of mid level, they can take 50 points. This only goes on a lord level character. It's a single use. You can use the scroll instead of making a normal dispel attempt, so you've got to be in range, so 24 inches. You cast the spell as normal, or the spell is cast as normal, but once it's resolved, you roll 2d6. For each 4-up, the casting wizard loses a single wound. And for context, you have 2 wounds if you're a low-level wizard, or 3 wounds if you're a high-level wizard.
Sure. I think 60 points is very expensive. So I'm gonna say this is not a staple item. Just. I feel like there are. If you're grabbing this, you have nothing else to bring to the table. Because it's not like you'll face, in 40k you can face Grey Knights or 1,000 Suns where you have purely magic, or Lumineth in Age of Sigmar, and there's nothing like that in Old World. So I'm gonna say this is not a staple item.
Okay, so 60 points. You think it's not good?
No, it takes up too much of your Lord's magic item allowance. I feel like there's better things to buy than a feedback scroll.
Yeah, you're 100% on the money. This is, I would say, terrible. Not only do you not get to try to dispel the spell, you can't even kill a lord level character. And that's before you put them on some sort of like monster mount. If you put them on a dragon, they might go up to 9 wounds.
Yeah,
so
two wounds is
an average of 1 wound
toe.
for 60 points is not going to cut the mustard there.
No.
All right. Starting off with an easy one. So then we're on to magic items. Ogre Blade, 65 points. So it's range combat, so base to base. Strength +2, AP2, Armor Bane 1, so 6s to wound, you get an additional pip of AP. Magic attacks and multiple wounds D3.
65 points. Well, I mean, I feel like this one would see more use than the previous one on like a killer character, but I still don't think it's a staple item. To be fair, magical attacks and multiple wounds D3. The only thing I've heard.
Magical attacks on there, just all magic weapons have magical attacks.
Okay, fair enough.
It's not a rule that comes up all that often. There are a couple of things in the game that lose defenses against magical attacks.
Okay, so it's not as good as it was in like back in it, because I have a vague memory of magical attacks like eating people up.
There are a couple of times that it's useful, but if you just want the magic attacks, you can take a 5-point magic item that gives you flaming and magic attacks there.
Yeah. In that case, I am going to also say not a staple item.
Yeah, so before I give you a final answer, what do you think the sort of limitations of this is?
Again, like +2 strength, that seems rather good. I feel like from what I've picked up so far, I feel like having a high strength is all still good. Obviously, even hitting is the hard part. AP2 doesn't seem that high to me, but again, coming from AOS and 40k, AP2 is like, if you have AP3, that's high. So maybe. Armor Bane 1, getting one extra pip of AP on a 6 when like your Lord is on 4 or 5, maybe 6 attacks, I feel like it would be a standard. So I feel like you're paying a lot of points again, but not getting that much for what you're paying for, basically.
Sure, yeah.
So I feel like you can probably pick an item from your own faction that does this better.
Cool. Okay, so you are so far out. This item is so good that it stops anyone taking magic items from their own factions, with like 2 exceptions.
Wow.
This is like the gold standard.
Wow.
So there's a few things about it. AP2 is quite like it's not. I guess it is high for Old World. It's about as high as it gets without layering additional rules onto there. Sure. AP2 is kind of the cap, but armor saves tend to be a little bit lower as well. Armor Bane's fine. That's not why you have it. But multiple wounds D3. There's not a lot of things in the game that do multiple wounds. There's a lot of. Yeah, and generally infantry have 1 wound, but it's a great weapon that takes a single hand, so you can stack it with a shield. You can put it on your Dragon Lord. You can ride around. You can hit really hard. This thing's incredible. It's great.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
But that's good, because magic weapons typically aren't great, and this is sort of the exception that you'll see, especially the generic ones. Because the meta is basically loads of ridden monsters, like big dragons, and this can help you chunk through them with those multiple wounds.
Yeah.
Moving on, we've got a magic banner. This is specifically for Warriors of Chaos. They've got a new set of rules that have just come out, so I thought it'd be nice to have something there. 75 points. So this is the way that magic banners work. Is that's probably above the magic items you can attach to a unit. You're going to have to put it on a character, your battle standard bearer, who you can have one of, but can unlock more powerful abilities. And a unit carrying this banner ignore all negative modifiers to its leadership characteristic. Would you like any context around how that works, or are you just going to freeball it?
My only question is, if you give this to your battle standard bearer and attach it to a unit, does he transfer this to the rest of the unit?
Yes, yeah. So if he's in the unit, the entire unit gets the defenses there.
I feel like for Warriors of Chaos, 75 points. This seems really expensive. But obviously, my gut feeling is like everything this pricey, when it does something this small, I feel like ignore all negative modifiers to a leadership characteristic for 75 points. I feel like there's got to be something cheaper that does that for you.
I think this is pretty much. I don't think there's much in the way of actually ignoring modifiers. You're welcome to ask any questions. I might tell you that I'm not answering them, but you're welcome to ask, as long as I don't think it'll give the game away. But this. Well,
how big is leadership? Like, because I have done some perusing of Old World stuff, because obviously as soon as there's a new Games Workshop game, you're always like a little bit like, ooh, I do like this. Like I would like to make an army, but I skimmed through the vampire stuff, which I feel like would be the scary one with the fear and the terror and stuff. But I feel like fear and terror do they apply negative modifiers to leadership, or do they just
Terror does in combat,
yeah
and so applying a negative modifier to a leadership stat is strong because the way that making a unit break from combat works is so if you roll your leadership or below it, but above your modified leadership. So say you lose combat by 6, but your leadership 8. If you roll a 2, I mean a 2 is a bad example there. Say you lose by 4. If you roll below the modified number. You fall back in good order, which is like a fairly safe fallback. If you roll above the modified leadership, you just flee and they can catch you and kill you. So there are some things that can modify leadership. So terror, big monsters can do that. There are a couple of spells that modify leadership as well. And you said vampires. There is an army, like a build where you go around basically screaming models to death. You roll against their leadership. But that's the only army that does damage based on the leadership stat, I believe.
I'm going to go with I don't think this is a staple. This seems way too expensive for what it does.
Yeah, I agree. So when Vampire Counts at the sort of like 2 or 3 months in, people discovered this build where you just take as many models with Wailing Dirge as possible, which makes you pick a unit within 8 inches. It's not a shooting attack, so you can kind of snipe out characters. You make them roll, and for every point they are above their leadership, they just take a wound and they ignore armor saves. I think regen as well. It's absolutely brutal, but this is one, like, if your mate's playing the Scream list incessantly and you can't beat them, maybe you tech it in. But like, how often are you going to play against that? And you're right, 75 points is a lot of points. Perfect. So I have been keeping track roughly. I think you're 2 for 1 now, so you're not doing too bad. It's a good start. We're moving on to another magic item, specifically this time for wood elves. This is the Oaken Stave, 40 points. It's an arcane item, so it goes on one of your casters. And when you're within 3 inches of a woodland terrain feature, the bearer increases their dispel range by 3 inches. And also, when they're within 3 inches of a woodland terrain feature, you roll an additional d6 and discard the lowest result.
And wood elves still get trees, right? Like that's their whole shtick. So they get to bring some extra trees with them into combat.
Yeah, so there's a spell that can summon trees, which is a remains in play, so your opponent can dispel it before you get to dispelling. So tree singing, the way it works, is a remains in play spell. You cast it, your opponent gets a chance to dispel it at the start of the turn. Before they have to roll to cast any of the spells, but you can sort of position out of their range to do that, so that's not the a major downside. You also get a free wood as a wood elf player that you place at the start of the game, so you do get some more wood ability.
I feel like I don't. This feels like a middle of the road kind of item to me. Like I feel like there are lists where you can chuck this on like level 2 wizard that you're. Like the wizard lord that you're holding in a backline.
Something to mention: the lower level the lower level wizards have a smaller dispel range, so you probably do want to have this on a bigger.
But because the Willow's wizard lord, or maybe even a tree lord ancient, but like I don't know if there's like a castle build wood elf army, but I feel like I don't want to say staple because I feel like it's so situational and you have to position yourself. So like, okay, increasing your dispel range by 3 or 6 if you're within a woodland terrain, having to position yourself close to that woodland terrain might make you lose out on those extra 3 inches anyway because of how you are moving around on the board. But I feel like there are lists where this is really useful for that point, especially when you get the extra d6 to discard discard the lowest result. So I feel like it's too situational to be a staple item, but I feel like it's close to it if it's not a staple item.
Okay, this is probably the best wood elf item in the game.
Yeah, there you go.
This is incredible. So You can outrange. Basically, the way that it works with wizards, you can kind of jockey for position. So
Yeah.
a lot of stuff, you might want to cast enchantments or hexes, and you might want to sort of be out of range of your opponent's dispel range. But then if you're out of range, they get to cast their spells without you dispelling them. So what this lets you do is you
Sure.
sit in that sort of 3-inch bubble, and
Yeah.
you cast your spells, they can't stop you, and then you
Sure.
get to stop their spells. Also, you roll 3d6, get rid of the lowest. It makes you
Yeah.
so much safer. You're less likely to accidentally explode yourself by miscasting.
Yeah.
But you're also way more likely to get the dispel off because you've got a
Yeah.
a higher roll there. So this thing's
Fair enough.
it's great,
Yeah.
and being able to tree sing to bring in the extra wood is the real value there. I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so you put yourself outside the dispel range, summon in a tree, and then all of a sudden you can dispel them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Great.
Perfect. So we're back to the main book now. This is one that again everyone apart from dwarves can take because they've got their own runic items. I didn't mention that, but you probably remember from 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So this is a generic magic talisman. It's 35 points, called the Dawnstone, and the bearer can reroll any armor save of a natural 1.
Okay. Being a little, I can't trust myself now because I was so sure about the Woodlf one that now I'm looking at this and I'm like, maybe everyone just has a Dawnstone chucked on like a fighter lord that they just like, or a BSB or something. But every time I get a Dawnstone in Total War Warhammer, I forget that that's a magic item. So I'm gonna say, re-rolling an armor save of a natural 1 for 35 points. Again, I feel like there are better ways to spend those 35 points. So I'm going to say not a staple.
Well, yeah, you're spot on.
Yeah!
So 35 points, that's quite expensive.
Yeah.
Armor from previous editions of the game has been basically knocked down by 1. So you used to see a lot of 2-up saves and 3-up saves. Now it's more 3-ups and 4-ups. So the value of this is lower, but it also takes up a spot that the Talisman of Protection also takes. And you can't take 2 magic talismans on the same model, which I probably should have said, but
no, it makes sense. Yeah.
We're halfway through now.
I didn't know Talisman of Protection was a talisman. I don't remember these things.
That gives you a 5-up ward save, which is just infinitely better.
Way better. Yeah.
For anyone who hasn't played Old World, you just take all of your saves. You take your armor save, then your ward save, then your regen if you've got all 3, which is fair and balanced.
Stack the save, absolutely.
Perfect. So you're back in the positive, 3 and 2.
Let's go.
Speaking of being positive, I'm positive these things smell. Trollhide trousers. This is an orc and goblin specific magic item. It's got a little star next to it, so it's extremely common, which means that you can have multiple of them in the army. So if you wanted to have multiple characters wearing it, you could. 40 points. You can wear it with other armor. Increases your armor by 1, and it gives you regen 5 up as well.
I feel like I've heard this mentioned on Square-based the few times I've had them on in the background. I feel like this is I've heard this.
You might be getting that confused with the ogre jacket. Make sure you're not.
No, I'm 100% sure. I'm gonna say this has to be like 40 points for +1 armor and regen 5. No, I'm gonna say this is a staple. If it's not a staple, thank you.
This is incredible. I didn't even let you finish. You were so certain. I was certain. This thing's incredible. This takes you to a whole new level of tankiness. You're looking to pay probably somewhere in the realm of about 30 points for a 5-up ward or a 5-up regen. You also get +1 to your save on top of that, and it's extremely common. So you can just be like, oh, I've got 3 killy characters. I want them all to be tanky. Job's a good one. Yeah. So great.
120 points. Hell yeah, dude.
Great stuff there.
Have a sale down at the troll market. Give me all your trousers.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, we've got a Brettonian weapon, the Sword of Heroes, 60 points, strength user, no AP, magical attacks because it's a magic weapon, and monster slayer. So if you roll a 6 to wound against a dragon or another monster, you automatically kill them if they failed their ward save. So you don't get to take armor saves, you don't get to take regen. they only have the ward save. And obviously, a dragon can be 9 or 10 wounds, so that's quite a fast way to get through them. When making it a wound roll, you roll a roll of a 5 is always a success, regardless of the toughness. But this doesn't stack with the Monster Slayer. This is just 5's always wound, and then normal wounds, and then 6 is a Monster Slayer as well.
I feel like with all of the dragons I know have been running around on the table, if you are a Brettonian paladin, you are picking up the Sword of Heroes and charging into combat, because I feel like 60 points, it has to be a Lord character, right? Because it's 50 points.
So actually, that's a great point. I'm glad you mentioned that. Brettonians have 3 tiers of characters. So they've got the top level that they can only take 1 off, and they get 100 points. They've got 5 attacks each. Then you've got a mid tier called a Duke, I believe it is, which is 4 attacks, but they get 75 points of allocation for magic items. And then you've got the Paladin, who's 50 points, but you can take any of them.
No, I don't know if it's still the meta, but if it's in the beginning, I feel like there was a lot of Dukes picking up the Sword of Heroes and charging whatever dragon was closest and just hoping to roll a 6. That's, again, it might be a little bit too situational, but I feel like that's a gamble I'd be willing to take. 4 dices, 1 6, and unless they have, I'm guessing like a 5 upward is standard, a 4 upward seems.
It's very hard to get a 4 upward on a dragon.
I feel like I would take that gamble, especially with the amount of monsters that were probably running around at the beginning of the edition.
Yeah, so dragons are definitely a huge part of the meta. We've just had a release for Chaos, as I mentioned earlier. They can now take lists with 3 dragons in, or they can take 2 dragons and then like a couple of giants spawn, which look really genuinely exciting. And most of those ones don't actually even have a ward save. They just have a regen save and some armor. So this would theoretically cut right through. Here's where I've been really unfair. So Brettonians have a vow called the Virtue of Heroism. And that gives you Monster Slayer and Killing Blow, and it's 60 points, and you can still take a lance with it. So this is a straight bamboozle.
Why would you have this sword if you could
come for me in the comments, because that's
oh my god.
What I will say before people get too heated, I don't think this item would be good anyway. There's a 50-point magic item you can take just for the the regular book, which is a sort of monster slaying. It has no stats, 50 points, 6 to wound, kill a dragon. I still don't think that's good. Some people like it, but I never see people take it in tournament lists. So I think it's still a fair rating to, despite my bamboozle. I think it's a fair rating.
I will, Well, if I'd known about the vows, I would have thrown this in the garbage. Sword of Heroes, more like Sword of Garbage. Am I right?
I think you're right. Yeah, absolutely. So we're keeping the theme with the bee armies, and this is now Beastmen. So this is a magic item for Beastmen. It's an arcane item, only taken by casters, 30 points, and whenever the bearer successfully casts a magic missile, they may reroll any failed rolls to wound. So just to clarify how this works, this doesn't work with the Ruby Ring of Ruin. You can't stack this with bound items, but you can take a caster who gets 2 magic missiles. So you've got someone who's going to get 2 uses out of it per turn if you position right.
I feel like 30 points to reroll 2 wounds, 2 wound rolls.
So it's 2 spells at each spell. Like you saw Fireball might be 2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Fireball or like a lightning bolt or. I don't know which ones are technically magic missiles in this edition, but I was going to say Flock of Doom, but I think that's not a magic missile. But I feel like for 30 points, there's a way to use this. I like this. I would take this if I ever played Beastmen. I'll never play Beastmen. I'm a Wood Elf player through and through.
Yeah. Well, you might find that this causes you issues if you're a Wood Elf player. So to give the full context of this item, there are very few ways to get rerolls at all in the old world. They're very limited. So anywhere you can take them, it's worth taking a second look at whether an item's good. There's also signature spells. So no matter which spell law you take as a Beastman player, you can swap into a specific spell called Viletide. Now, Viletide is 5d6 auto hits at strength 1. So having those wound rolls is quite nice, but just the quantity. And I believe it's definitely no armor saves. It might be no regen as well. So in theory, you're like, it's only 6s, but you're getting, 2 sets of 6s to roll.
Yeah,
This thing's cracked. This is so good. This is
Hell yeah.
An unbelievably good magic item.
Hell yeah.
So you can't take a dragon in Beastmen. So
Yeah.
like your dragon is a caster on a chariot that runs around and just points at things and go, "You're dead, mate. Now you're dead." It's very good.
Oh, that sounds so Beastmen. I already despise them for it.
Yeah, as you should. As you
Yeah.
should. Perfect. So we've got 2 more. We're coming into the final straights, but you're doing pretty well. You're pretty much on the money.
I got this. Yeah.
Now we've got an item from the Tomb Kings, and this is the Armor of Ages, 50 points. It's light armor, so it's a 6-up save. Sure. And in addition, enemy models must reroll successful wound rolls against the bearer. This has been clarified, so you can't use... so if you're on a dragon, for example, dragons come with a 4-up save inbuilt. You can't use that 4-up save and the reroll. You have to use your native 6-up save.
Sure.
Or 5-up if you put a shield on as well. So it's you sacrifice a save to make people reroll your the wound rolls against you.
Yeah. Oh, again, 50 points. I feel like it's a do you still get your regen rolls as Tomb Kings? Because all of the undead have a regen.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe it's a 5-up regen on a Tomb King, which is probably where you're putting this.
I feel like if I'm making a killy Tomb King character and chucking him into combat, I want to make him more survivable, not gamble on the fact that I'm hit less. Mm-hmm. And again, I feel like there are more ways to do that efficiently than to make them reroll wound rolls. So I'm gonna say not standard.
Okay, so this thing's incredible. So the way this works is you put a character on a dragon, which gets them up to T6. So T6 is already difficult. If you're strength 4 or lower, you're wounding on 6s.
Sure.
So like all of the incidental firepower that's coming in, probably wounding on 6s. So you're looking at, even after you hit, which is going to be 4s probably at best from your massed output, you're then wounding on 6s. But you're not, because any of those 6s, you have to re-roll them.
Yeah.
So it's brutal. You also get to choose the better armor save if you're against something that's probably going to wound you, but you'd like the save against it.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah. Oh, that I really like that mechanic, though, of moving the decision of like where you succeed in a combat away from like the saves or the armor penetration to the hitting and the wounding. I feel like that's I feel like it's more thematic in a way, and it fits fantasy battles better. If like in 40k, sure, you want the armor saves to be really good because it's a sci-fi settings. So I really like it's hard to reprogram your brain to keep up with it, but I like the idea that it's the decision isn't made with your powerful magical armor. The decision is made: did you hit the guy, and did you hit him where it hurt?
Yeah, I
I
agree. I really like that. I think it's great, and obviously modifiers are really strong in the old world. Not that it's easy. I don't think there's many, if any, modifiers to wound, but modifiers to hit. Like so the dragon is -1 to hit in the shooting phase already because it's got a cloud of dust around it. So you can make it really hard to pick this thing off without dedicated anti-dragon tech.
Hell yeah.
Finally, we've got an item from the High Elves. So this is 20 points. It's an extremely common magic item, so you can take it alongside other talismans. You can take it multiple times if you wanted to. Single use, the Opal Amulet gives its bearer a 2-up ward save against a single wound.
Give me all of them. I feel like, why wouldn't you take this? I feel like you always have 20 points to spare somewhere. At least one in every list, right? You gotta have that one like, oh, I'm on my last wound. You know what? I'm gonna take my 2+ ward save. I played Dark Eldar in 40k. I know how a 2+ ward save works.
So I was just gonna bring up the Archon from 40k. I find that when I play it, I always roll the 1 immediately. When I play against it, my opponent never rolls the 1, and that's not a single use, but
no, I played Dark Eldar for a while, and I've had my Archon tank everything from Primarchs to Titans. So a 2+ ward save, yeah, baby, give it to me.
Yeah, this thing's incredible.
Yeah.
So what this does is you can use it as you might expect to use it. Oh, you're like, oh no, a stone throw has hit me and it's wounded me. It's got through my save. I'm going to take D3+1 damage, which is like a high amount of damage. It's pretty much the optimum, the most you can get in But also
Mm.
Monster Slayer, that previously mentioned Brettonian character. If you put this on your
Oh.
Dragon Lord, you just go, shame about that 1 6-year-old. I do have a 2-up ward save. You don't kill me, then I'm
Yeah.
gonna slap you back, and I hit
Oops.
real hard. So
Yeah.
sucks to
Yeah.
be you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, I'm just gonna quickly count them so I can tie up the video. So we've got
Yeah.
you went feedback yes, Ogre Blade no,
Mm.
Banner yes, Oakenstave no, Dawnstone yes. Trollhide Trousers, yes, sub to 4. Sword of Heroes, I bamboozled you. Hag Tree Fetish, yes. Armor of Ages, you said no, right?
Armor of Ages.
Was
I
no,
said
and
no.
then
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So you're
Yeah.
6 and 4. You're 60% of the way there.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Like I'm deliberately making you. I'll just say,
Yeah.
yeah. So end of that one, you go 6 right out of 10, which I think is pretty incredible because I did my absolute level best to bamboozle you, and it's a game you've never played before.
Yeah. True. I'd like to thank Square Based again. Shout out to Rob for teaching me about a game I haven't played and probably won't play for the foreseeable future. So I love keeping this useless. Well, it's not useless for everyone, but for me, it's useless strategical facts in my brain where I could have kept, I don't know, something else.
Fantastic. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for coming on. Do you want to quickly plug your Instagram?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to see sporadically updated, somewhat decently painted Warhammer miniatures, or sometimes other cool fantasy and sci-fi miniatures, you can follow me on Anjou Paints. And potentially there might be a YouTube channel with a similar name that might pop up some Age of Sigmar War videos. I've said this now in a video that's going somewhere, so I feel like now I've committed to it. So, keep an eye out for that.
Absolutely, and we'll probably see Anjou back on the channel in about 3 months' time after he's managed to get his video up. It takes a long time to do things properly, so that's not a slight
Absolutely.
against him. But once
Hell
it's
yeah!
up,
I'd love to
we'll
come
probably
back
see him
on
again.
and try to out bamboozle you for.
Huge thanks as always to my Grail Knight tier supporters. That is Morpheus Gaming, Mechanite, and most recently Creekhammer. Thank you as well to everyone else who's popping up on the screen right now. If you like what I do, you too can become a supporter of the channel, becoming a member down below. Or, if not, you can like the videos, share, watch. All of these things really have helped me grow the channel and will continue to help me expand over the next few months. There's a growing close order Discord linked down below. That's not a members-only Discord. There are members-only VIP areas, but it is something that you're more than welcome to join. We are starting to grow a great community there. It's quite active. Lots of great hobby going on down below as well. If you haven't subscribed, there'll be a link to subscribe on your screen over here, and there'll be another video to watch if you want to over there. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.